Hello, and here we go for the first ever edition of the 186Kloud show. Today we bring you the first show of a series of shows aptly called Fresh Out of the Office. Throughout the series we'll be talking with a range of communications technology vendors and suppliers who have first-hand experience of a pandemic that shaped our personal and professional lives in 2020. We'll be learning how their services and technologies help customers pivot from a world where organisations were mainly office-based to a new world where work is no longer a place. So grab a drink, settle in, and join us and our first ever guest supplier Fuze on the 186Kloud show season 1, straight outta the office. See you there. Good morning, gentlemen of Fuze. So we got Mark Lawrence, Matt, and Tom Disney on the 186Kloud show today. And today we're going to be talking about unified communications technology from Fuze and their experience of the pandemic over the in 2020. Because this has been an interesting period where lots of businesses have, very early on were forced by the government, globally actually, were forced by their various governments globally. Early on in the year, I think it was for March for us, they were forced home, almost overnight they were told, get your employees home, they can work from home if they can, where it's safe. And it was an interesting time for business. It's been an interesting time for the economy, and we're still in an interesting time. I think that, it's brought a lot of opportunity, a lot of change at the same time. And so what we're going to talk about today is get to know Fuze, get to know their technologies, get to know their people, and get to know their thinking around and their experience of the market over the last year and their thinking for the future. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Mark and Matt. And guys, wonder if you could introduce yourselves, tell us about you personally, and your personal background and why you're working for Fuze.
So hi Stephen, my name is Mark Lawrence. I've been in IT for 15 years, having worked in the past for software houses, IT managed service providers, and now working in the UCaaS market. I've worked alongside Fuze with various customers in the past, and I've always been impressed by the technology, like the overall approach and how they looked after customers once they were live. The UCaaS space is sort of very exciting at the moment, and with everything that's gone on, it's really enabled businesses to cope with the situation that's been thrust upon us. So that's me.
Good, Matt. Over to you.
No worries. So Matt Glock, I'm the Global Vice President for Sales Engineering at Fuze. Also wear a Field CTO hat over here. I've been in IT too long. My career started a long time ago at a company called Digital Equipment Corporation, where I was running data centers and network operations for them in the southeast UK region. Built out from there, moved into pre-sales many years ago. Originally selling some of the data center management tooling and starting to move into cloud from that side of things. More recently, working at BMC Software, selling enterprise management software, data center management software, and cloud services as the entire IT stack started to move into cloud. The final part of it that did the cloud transition was telecommunications, and it's one of the oldest technology industries in the world, and one of the most complex, which is probably why it was the last part of the cloud stack, or the last part of the IT stack to move to cloud. So an opportunity came up to come and work at Fuze to build out a global pre-sales team here and lead it as we've grown the company. And 5 years ago that was, and still here, still enjoying the time at Fuze, and seen a lot of changes in the industry this year especially, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute, Stephen. But it's exciting times to be in UCaaS for definite. And I think the customer piece that Mark was talking about, the entire CX element of this, and how the customer journey is, pre and post sale, and how they live with the product is crucial, and that's a core part of what I enjoy doing, and making sure the customers are happy as we go forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is a very exciting time to be in the industry. Challenging for lots of industries, but for our industry, it's very exciting. I often talk about how, and we've all collectively talked about over the last few years, how this forthcoming BT switch off date of 2025, is the date by which, if you haven't moved to the cloud by then, you're going to get switched off. Your PBX, if it's connected to ISDN, is going to get switched off. And then over the last few months, I've been talking about, actually, I think that's going to become a non-event, because I think that by the time we get there, because of this pandemic, this whole move to the cloud thing will have been accelerated. So, if you're going to move to the cloud, I think now is the time to be thinking about it, which is why we're talking to you guys today. So, Matt, I wonder if I could throw back to you. Tell us a bit about Fuze, who you are, where you come from, what the technology is built on, bit of history, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're Boston, Massachusetts-based company, founded in 2006. We're still a privately held VC-backed company. We originally focused on developing ground-up PBX functionality in cloud. So it's the entire technology stack has been built ground up inside the cloud with cloud-based technologies. As I say, the original was to build out just PBX function, to build out telephony function. Once we had put that in place and started building out the global network, the idea was then, well, now let's start growing and bringing other components into the system, such as the chat side of things, the instant messaging side, looking at a low-level contact center at that point, bringing in meetings platform, video calling, etc. And I would say over the last 6 years, things have really started to take off as far as UCaaS is concerned and the adoption. And that's driven where the platform has gone during that time. So looking at the merge from multiple products as we've made certain key acquisitions, to bringing it into the combined experience of Fuze, where you can have a single client that provides chat, it provides calling, it provides video calling one-to-one, it provides the meetings platform, and also the Fuze contact center experience, all in a single UI based on multi-modality. So whether you're on a Mac, you're on a PC, you're on the web, you're on a tablet, or you're on a cell device, all of those have exactly the same look and feel, and the same feel from a customer perspective, and the same usage from that. So yeah, that's where we've come to from a UI and user perspective. We've also, in the background, because we own the entire data stack and we own the network global, is to then look at what we can do with data. So bringing all of that together, providing business insights to our customers around usage, around geographical usage, geographical calling. If you can look at a sales team, for example, or recruiting, I know we're going to talk about some customers in a little while. Recruiting is a core one, especially in the pandemic, where you would look at where they're calling out to. And I've got a few customers that I work very closely with who use the data for their business operations planning. So if they're seeing a big uptick in a certain part of Europe, where their London-based team, for example, were calling into a European country, to control cost, to also bring in some local language, they would use that data to then say, right, from an operation perspective, this would be a good idea. Let's go and open a business over in that point, or open a small office over in that specific country. So we're seeing data as the next currency almost, as we're moving through, and especially in the pandemic, to help businesses understand people are not in the office, they're at home, they're doing their thing at home, right? How do we know that they're actually doing their jobs, right? How do we? And it's not necessarily a Big Brother thing, but it's ensuring they're doing the right things. And we as a business have got that same level of health, and using data to be able to monitor and manage that. So there's a brief history of where we are.
Yeah, that's really useful. It's also really interesting because, I was really picking up on the data thing there. And I think that data does lend itself to interpretation of user experience. So, you talked about making sure people are using the service in the best way they can. Because, the challenge that this pandemic has created for organizations is that, yes, they realize that employees can be effective away from the office. So therefore, if they're saving money on travel, saving money, i.e., less people are traveling to meetings. If employees are saving money on commuting, then they're happier employees. If they're not having to spend the time commuting, they're happier employees. If they're getting access to the tools and the resources they need, then they can do their job effectively. The one challenge that I'm hearing is what's missing. The office, the one thing it gave was the ability to just walk up to somebody's desk and have a chat with them. And I guess that's something that you guys, I'm sure, are focused on in terms of making sure you help your customers understand how the technology can help them. And I know, just turning very quickly to Mark, we've spoken recently about the Fuze leads on user experience and user adoption. That's a big part of your strategy, I believe. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, Mark?
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so sure. So essentially what I was saying was, I was just talking about user experience and user adoption being important, and clearly it's something that Fuze lead with. And I just wondered, Mark, if you can tell us a bit about the Fuze approach to adoption and experience.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, one of the things that we realised at Fuze, one size certainly doesn't fit all, and what we've been able to develop over our like Matt was saying, founded in 2006, we've got a lot of experience within this space, and what we've developed is our adoption playbook. That is something that we run through with our customer set, and we've broken adoption down really into 5 key phases. And the first 4 phases are really done before the go live, and then we've got pieces that are continued throughout the life cycle of the contractor relationship with the customer. But really, one of the things that we found with adoption is, early on you want to identify a baseline of where you're at and take a measure, and then what you can do as you proceed throughout the engagement, making sure that you understand what the perception is of the IT estate, but more importantly, the unified communications set up within or the communication set up within the business, is that you're able to sort of take a point of measure at A, and then as you work through and build up and spend more time with the customer, you can see where you're actually moving ahead and into.
Okay, no, it's really interesting, and especially going back to the point that this has been a challenging time for organisations because they've been forced home because of the pandemic, and they need to make sure that they're able to, as seamlessly as possible, continue working in the same ways they did as the office, and that's the benefit that technology brings them. So let's actually turn to the pandemic itself. Let's go back to that period of the year when you first experienced customers, saying to you, we've got a challenge. What were the first sort of experiences you came across where your customers were challenged and they were turning to you for help?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Mark. I guess the time that this really started for us was tail end of February, beginning of March, where we had, obviously you got global governments were started to introduce global lockdowns, forcing people to go and work at home. We had customers coming to us saying, look, we're a voice customer. That's one of the things we do have, is we give people choice of what they have access to on the platform. So if they just want pure voice, or if they want voice plus our collaboration, which is the meetings experience, etc. We had a lot of voice-only customers coming inbound to us and saying, hey, we really need to spin up your meetings platform. We've been forced to go and do this. As you said, Stephen, a lot of office interaction disappeared overnight, and we felt it as well as a company, right? I was traveling a lot over to the US and spending a lot of time in headquarters, and suddenly you can't just walk around the corner and go and talk to someone. But if you pick up the phone and you can have that same conversation, it's still not that same level of interaction as doing it on a video meeting. You can't read body language. You can't look at someone's face and kind of hold them to account, if you like, inside of a meeting. So a lot of customers came inbound and asked us to spin up and add meetings onto their contracts, but not necessarily for the rest of the contracts. It was can we do this for 6 months and then we'll review where we are? Can we do it for a year and review where we are at that point? So there was a lot of provisioning activity that was happening at that time to enable our customers to consume more of the service from Fuze. We had other, we've got a lot of retail customers, and obviously retail as a vertical has gone through a huge transition and struggle this year because nobody's been going to the high street. It's all moved online, and we read every morning, right, as another company that's struggling in the retail space. So we had a lot of our retail customers coming to us saying, look, we need to keep our contact center up and running because we're moving everything to remote, but we don't need all the telephony that we've got in store. We don't need our frontline salespeople. We don't need our supply chains, etc. So how can we trim that back and maybe postpone some of the payment options, etc. So there was some, and again, you can do this easily within cloud. This is one of the big benefits of cloud, right? It's that elasticity element. Okay, we can trim things back. We can postpone some payments. We can stop the usage in store for a period of time, and maybe repurpose that more into the contact center, because that's where your customers are going to be inbound to you. So there was a lot of work around that was done at that point in time. The other piece we did see was a lot of customers coming to us asking for best practice of how to get over this, right? How to work through the pandemic. And we as a company had to do some quick thinking. It was early March. Our CEO just sent an email, something like that. Yeah, everybody is now remote working, right? Yeah, we had one or two people that are allowed to go into offices, but purely because if there's data center equipment or if there's network equipment in there that they need to access, that's the only reason they go to office. So it's a very quick transition for us to move to remote work. And we had to go through the same thing, right? Of how do you keep in contact as a company? And we've got a really open culture at Fuze. If you go to our headquarters, you can walk into the CEO's office, sit down, have a coffee with them, have a chat. And we wanted to keep that feeling for the team and for the employees. So one of the things we did was started to introduce an exec. They're called Ask Me Anything sessions, AMA sessions, and we were running them on a weekly basis, and each of the exec and then the VP level were holding these sessions on a weekly basis with the entire company, just so that we could keep conversation going. As you say, that human element of I just want to walk around a corner and ask someone a question, that allows people to feel that that's still there and they can do that. And we were giving guidance and advice such as that to our customers. And I know of a handful that I've worked closely with through the pandemic that have done exactly that and have started to implement these same types of processes and meetings in their own businesses. And the feedback is people still feel part of a company. They don't feel like they're a lone wolf stuck at home on a sofa or in the kitchen in their houses. They still have access and still talk to their teams and to the wider company as well at certain points of the week, and they know they're going to get that interaction point.
Right. And it's actually a bigger conversation, isn't it? It's great that you're making yourselves available to your customers for just general conversation so that they can learn best practice. But what I'm seeing is unified communications because of the elements that it provides as a service, because of the different areas in a business that it touches, that it is actually a wider conversation. So, and what I mean by that is, if you think about when organizations were forced home at the start of the pandemic, they went home using what I generally refer to as sticky tape and string technology. And what I mean by that is they used what they had in place. They didn't, unless they really needed to, they didn't look at anything new. And Matt, one of the examples you greatly given there is video. It's a must-have, right? Because for dispersed organizations, video is a must-have. But when we look at the voice, I think still there are a lot of organizations out there who aren't using their voice problem. They're not using the voice properly. They don't actually realize they've got a voice problem. So, for example, I spoke to a 200 user organization the other day, a law firm. And what I did was I spoke to a partner. I didn't speak to the IT department. I spoke to a partner to get a sense from them what challenges they're facing working remotely. And we spoke about voice. And I asked him, how are you making your voice calls today? How are you receiving your voice calls? And the response I got was mobile. Because they've got an on-prem telephone system they're using today where the calls are being forwarded from their desk phones to their mobiles. And he didn't seem to think it was a problem until I actually pointed a few things out with that, i.e., one, you've actually publicized your mobile number for everybody for forever now. It's available to everybody. Plus, I actually asked him, how does your organisation receive calls to your main number? And he said, well, the receptionist gets the calls to her mobile, and then she sends us an email. So they have a problem, because the issue is customers not getting the right experience. So that's why it's a wider conversation. It's not just a case of going to an IT director and saying you need a better solution during these times. It's getting to other people in the organisation this touches. And I know, Mark, that's essentially the piece of the business where you work, isn't it? It's about that user experience. It's about engaging the wider organisation. How would you, in an example like that, how would you go about engaging that organisation to help them understand how working with Fuze could provide them with a better experience, better than forwarding, for example, their calls to mobiles, and finding a better solution?
As you pointed out, Stephen, people, yes, they have started using mobiles. Now, one of the big problems there really is, it's not realised on day one. It's when that first mobile bill comes in and that first expense claim gets submitted. And what you'll then find is you've got a whole host of costs that are unpredictable, that are now landing on your, in the finance team's area, and, they've got to approve these. So instantly you've got other people within the business that have got a vested interest in the communications. And obviously, no one knew how long this was going to go on for. So you've got to make a plan to make sure that, next month, the month after, it's an infinite amount of time at the moment this could run for. So making sure that we're speaking to those right people, but also tying back those concerns back into the value that Fuze can bring. So, we have the mobile app, and we have the soft client, we've got obviously the desk phone, and we are able to basically provide that single number that people are able to use anywhere in the world. And like Matt said, we were very quickly sort of sent home in mid-March, and for us it was a very quick and easy change. We'd all work remotely. It was more just a case of, the days you do come into the office, you now don't. You're at home until sort of further notice. But we had customers as well that were sort of either had just signed up, were mid-deployment, and with a lot of these projects, obviously we're putting project plans forward for maybe a 6-month, 12-month deployment, and it would be something where we'd say, okay, well, we'll do one office, then the next over like a 6-month period. But we had to quite quickly switch and, bring these people online, but at a very rapid speed. And our professional services team were excellent in doing so. But, one of the things that we were able to do is we were able to spin up a collaboration licenses. So once the business was providing us all the user information, so, email address, contact information, we could populate our system and populate the Fuze platform with these users. And quite quickly, businesses were able to talk internally. And then what we would do as services became available, we would retrospectively build them. So, within a matter of a day, everyone was able to talk to each other. Within a matter of a week, they were able to, make outbound phone calls, host the external meetings. So there were things that we did very quickly. So a lot of our offerings, even before the pandemic, we had either on-site or remote. So now we've switched to, fully remote. We were delivering remote deployments, remote training. And I mentioned earlier, obviously, we had our adoption playbook. We quite quickly published guidance in there about how to handle, the quick switch working from home. So offering business advice on how to handle and communicate the change, promote virtual meetings. These were things that people never had before. So, what is it? What does it do? How can you make the best of it? And then really the other side of that as well is giving the management team the data and, empowering them to monitor the activity as well. So, they could see that if people were working remotely, they had portals and things that they could look into and, see that they were doing and carrying out the tasks that they expected them to.
Right. I like that phrase that you use, that quick switch. I talk about how organizations are pivoting from centralized technology to remote or agile technology. But you're right, it's been accelerated because of the pandemic. So that quick switch phrase, is really appropriate. So how do you see customers have been challenged apart from the time? Are there any other challenges that they've had to consider when they're thinking about that pivot to working remotely?
I think it comes down to one of the main things that we look at, and that is really the user adoption piece. I mean, it's all well and good, we've all worked in a company where you log on Monday morning and there's a new application on your desktop, and what's this? What's it for? What are we supposed to do with it? But one of the things that we've tried to do, and it was very difficult through the beginning of COVID, but we gave customers the material to basically promote and communicate what was about to land in their laps. And the real benefit of doing that is you start taking the users on that journey with the business. And also, I think people were very grateful as well that they were able to actually communicate, because there were a lot of businesses that could not function throughout the pandemic. And, in the early stages, there were probably a lot of places that had sort of 2-3 weeks where things were very, up in the air. So, giving them the information, making sure the users were aware of what was available. Like I mentioned, we've offered remote training throughout. We offer public-based sessions as well, so users can put their staff onto our public training. So we are trying to empower and promote the use of the technology as much as possible, and I think it's really paid dividends.
So the challenge has been about getting up to speed in terms of the technology. So what you've said is you focused on providing that training, either bespoke or en masse, to enable them to do so. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's obviously you always have people that sort of that are pro change, and then there's people that will take a little bit of convincing. And I think a lot of the culture today, it's very app driven. Everyone knows how to install an app on their phone. That's fine. But there are some people that aren't happy to do that. So it's showing them the benefits of doing it, or if they're a little bit averse to change, holding their hand through that that transition, and that's something that we've done.
Nice, that's good. Matt, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say the other piece that we were finding this with certain customers prior to the pandemic, right? But obviously this drove a much higher level of adoption, and with adoption comes problems and comes issues, especially when you're dealing with end users that have suddenly transitioned to a home office, away from being in an office where they've got IT support local to them. And the training that Mark's referring to isn't just how to use Fuze as an application, but it's also how to use UC and the environmentals around it, right? Headset choice, for example, right? And I'll give you an example. We had a customer who was using the Apple AirPods, and he's a champion that I've been working with for a long time. We've known each other for a while, and he was saying that he was having challenges with audio cutting in and out on his AirPods. Now, it turns out that in the room behind him, his wife was also using a pair of AirPods. And I don't know if you've ever walked through when we were allowed to travel, if you walk through an airport or a train station, you used to get a lot of interference on them. And his view was, well, the application isn't working correctly because I'm getting this cutout. Actually, it's that network between your device and your ears that's having the issue. But how do you solve for that? And we were getting a lot of those kind of questions coming in. So very quickly, we had to pivot our support teams to be able to answer that part. And how do we talk about that network and give people advice around headsets and environmentals, the Wi-Fi side of things that's something that we can be susceptible to, right? What's the best practice of using the application and the tool set and the environment that goes around it? But what we're now seeing, as we've been through this for 8-9 months now, it's people are now starting to get almost fatigued of the day-to-day video, right? And then being on video constantly. So now they're asking for guidance from, well, how much video is healthy for us? Should we get to the point where we start switching off video and just having a conversation instead? So there's the conversation with our customers and the requests from our customers and the advice we're providing is changing over time, and we're seeing that kind of switch now into give us more advice around how to use this healthily for the mental health of our employees as well.
It's about best practice and usage. Hey Matt, that was a really good example of a customer that we all see it, right? In whatever technology we're involved in. often customers blame the internet rather than the application, but it's interesting that they were actually blaming the application, whereas clearly it wasn't. It was, as I like what you said, the network between their ears and their actual device that was causing the problem. And you solve for it, because it's about the success of unified communications, of cloud-based unified communications, is the experience. It's the adoption. If people don't have a good experience, they won't adopt it. They'll find something else. I call it the path of least pain, right? They'll go to, a really good example, going back to mobile. I've got a 3,000 employee law firm I'm speaking to, and he says, my number one challenge right now, Stephen, is my cost of mobile calls. And Matt, we addressed that. It could be the cost of diverting to mobile. I said to him, there could be another thing in play here, and it's called human behavior. And probably what they're doing is they're probably picking up their mobile and making the calls because their contacts are in their mobile, and it's the easiest thing to do. So it's often, it's user behavior that we need to change, and so you solve for that, you educate. But what I'm really keen to hear is other examples of other customers that you helped during this last year as they pivoted to the cloud. Have you got a couple of those you could talk about, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. And the comment you just made about the people using a mobile device, cell device, because their contacts are in it. That's a really good one to start with. So we're one customer that we were working with pre-pandemic that actually signed up with us early on in the pandemic. They were a laggard in technology adoption. Let's put it that way. Their view was, we really needed a solid, compelling event to move to the cloud. And we thought COVID could be that compelling event for them to move to the cloud. We don't want to be seen as a company that was jumping on a bandwagon and trying to make as much money as possible out of the pandemic. But we also want to help customers. We want to help businesses to continue doing business and doing commerce. And these guys, it was about a quarter into it, and we were talking to our champions, talking to the economic buyers in the company, and I remember the meeting really well. They started talking about the first influx of expenses that had hit at the end of the quarter, and what Mark was referring to around the cell phone costs, and their cell phone bill went from around 5k a quarter to 50k in that first quarter of the pandemic, right? And the CFO basically turned to us and said, okay, can you remove that from us? So we had a long conversation with them about it. And then we got into some of the technology use cases and some of the, why won't we move to cloud? And the comment you just made was, a lot of the guys who are using their mobiles, they'd left the office and they'd put a whole bunch of contacts into their personal mobile, and then they were just using their mobiles to do the calls, right? So we had to show them how easy it was to then import that into the Fuze application and start using the Fuze application to then remove that cost from a cell phone. And we're probably 3/4 of the way through the deployment. There's still certain areas, and it's more the network access in that area that we're waiting for. COVID has slowed down a lot of things, including that last mile implementation, and getting that piece done, with those specific harder areas is all that's holding us up. But we've already their last report on expenses was back down to 7.5k. So the instant that we brought it back down, people are adopting it. People are now using it, and they know, actually, I can make this call from the Fuze application on my mobile, and it just uses that same contact. But also, because they're imported, I could do it from my desktop, so I don't have to do anything different. I can just continue to work where I am and carry on using the application. So that's one example of a pretty quick adoption, but also from a savings perspective and bringing that back down under control was huge for them as a company. And another example, existing customer. We've been working with these guys for many years now, and their CIO and CEO they often turn up on Fuze calls. We use them a lot as references because they're a long-standing, very happy customer. they overnight 3,500 employees that work for them. It's a global recruitment company. Closed all the offices, and they just carried on working from home the next day as though nothing had happened. I think we had one or two glitches where, and this will make you laugh, where people took their desk phone off, took it home and tried to plug it into the back of their broadband router, and they were like, it doesn't work. Okay, well, there's obviously some firewall issues or something else that's going on. But again, by switching them onto mobile or switching them onto desktop, while we worked through the problems, we were able to get that resolved and get them up and running again very quickly. So yeah, just a couple of quick customer examples for you there of how we've helped them out. And the 3,500 user one was one of the ones that I was referring to earlier on, who also came back and said, can you enable meetings on our tenants so that we can use meetings during this pandemic as well? So the ability to switch from just pure play voice as a recruiter, obviously they're making a lot of outbound phone calls, to actually, how do we do interviews now? Because we can't see people. Well, if we can get them into a Fuze meeting, then we've got that one-on-one experience. We can have the CV up there, we can take notes, and we can read body language and understand the individual a lot better. So a couple of examples for you.
Right. No, they're really good. Thank you. And you referenced the word mobile again. It's a common theme, right, in the world of UC. Not because the mobile is a problem, but because the mobile is an opportunity. And the reason the mobile is an opportunity is because organizations in the UC world talk about them being mobile first. Because organizations are becoming mobile first. These devices, these smart devices that we're using today, they're mini computers, right? They have more power than my first, second or third ever computer. So they are the device that we are actually using as our business device anyway. So why not? Why should it not be the device that we use for all of our communications? But it's not just about that device; it's about the integrations as well. It's my theory, and I'd like to understand from Fuze's perspective where you see the future of unified communications and the future of work going, especially in terms of integration. Because as organizations, I read something last week that said something like 86% of organizations now think the future of their organization is going to become hybrid, i.e. hybrid office, hybrid remote. So that there is no longer a place for centralized technologies. It's got to be more cloud. So again, these devices are becoming the device of the future, but it's about, we need to make sure that technologies such as unified communications integrate into the applications that the business is using. Tell me a bit about the sort of applications that you are seeing customers are using, is important to them, and you integrate to. Give us some examples.
No, absolutely. And you're spot on. I'll answer the question in 2 seconds. There was a report from the Future of Work movement, I think it was last week or the week before, that was saying that the pandemic has moved the future of work forward by maybe 10 to 15 years. From a thought process perspective of getting people to adopt and work remotely, which is huge, right? It's taken something like this to force that through. But yeah, I'm a great believer in business process and a great believer in technology as an enabler of business process, right? Yeah, I'm a technologist at heart, but we have technology for a reason. We don't just buy a laptop just to have a laptop. It's to do a job, right? As you say, the cell phone, the mobile device in your hand is to do a job, right? And our lives then become part of it. Integrating that into business applications, business processes is crucial. And depending on the type of business, it depends on the integration you require. And it could be, do you want somebody, use that recruitment company as an example. They spend most of their life inside of a CRM platform, right? Now, there's lots of CRM platforms out there, whether Bullhorn is a specific one for recruitment. These guys use Salesforce as an entire CRM for their whole business. How do you make their lives easier, right? And this is what drives the adoption. So the ability to live inside of Salesforce, where all of my opportunities are, all of my contacts are, all of my candidates for job roles, etc., are set up within that CRM platform. to be able to then sit in there and just so actually, well, I'm going to call this guy, one click, and it just triggers and fires out on whatever device, whether it be on your cell phone or on using desktop, whatever, it will make the call. At the end of it, it's there, it's not just an integration to make the call. It's then how do you capture that information back into the business process? So how long was the call, right, is also really important. If the call's only 2 seconds long, okay, you haven't got a pickup. If it's 30 seconds long, maybe you've got a pickup, but that person's pitch on the phone isn't resonating with the person that answered the phone, right? If it's a 10-minute call, maybe they're really good at it, and we can use that recording to play back to other people as a training aid, right? So it's capturing the start-stop times and things like that of the calls is very important back into the CRM. But then you can go one step further and start forcing process. So when you hang up the call, you then get the pop to say enter the notes of the call, and you have to type in the notes, right? And you can't just close it. It forces you to follow the process in there. So integrations like that in CRM, so you get that end-to-end encapsulation of the business process is crucial. Same applies to service desks, right? Yeah, a lot of people now, we talk about omni-channel, we talk about how you communicate, whether it be a chatbot that's on somebody's website, whether it be I just want to send an SMS message in, etc. That's got to be captured somewhere. And where do you capture it? Do you capture it inside your contact center? Well, it depends on what the communication is. If it's coming from a customer, you probably want it in your contact center. If it's an ability to use something like ITIL to capture specific types of inbound incident or inbound ticket, maybe we just route it direct into a service desk if it's an IT issue. And then IT will then give it to the right resolution group to go and do something with it. So as I say, it depends on who we're talking to and the use of the business. But integration and telephony being embedded direct into applications is where we really see the next generation of UCaaS going.
Good to know.
Just one thing to add to that as well. I mean, in a previous life I was a service desk manager, and one of the banes of my role there was we take calls into the service desk, and you speak to the engineer and say, oh, did you log that? Oh, no, I'll do it in a minute. And the fact of the integration means that it's making their lives easier, it's forcing that quality. And the other thing that you're able to do, and Matt mentioned it as well, is you can really show some not only cost savings but also time savings as well. So the amount of time, you don't have to look a customer up, it automatically finds them. You don't have to go ahead and do the complete action on the phone call. It already puts that screen in front of them. So actually the quality that the business sees from it is much greater as well.
But and what I'm hearing here, I believe I'm hearing here, reading between the lines, knowing Fuze, is that you're not expecting customers to know this. They know their processes, they know what they do. You know what you can do to integrate into their processes. So that's what Fuze does, Mark. That's an area of the business that you support, where you provide value, where you provide that level of, consultancy into their business to understand how their business and Fuze can work together, how you can build that partnership. Mark, is it a 3-step program? What are the steps that you go through to work with an organization to help them understand how they can really absorb the whole Fuze experience into their go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we do quite early on is, as engagement manager, I get involved very early on in the cycle. So this is in the pre-sales piece. We're introducing the services that we offer, but one of the things that we're really doing is we're listening. So we're trying to understand what the business is about, what's important, and also where the pain points are as well. So part of my role is I create what we call a migration plan, and really that lists what the company is all about, how what they're going to move to for Fuze, and also how we're going to go about doing that. And we also list in their business challenges as well. So we'll look at who key stakeholders are. We'll look at technical considerations as well, and also how our project team really need to approach this. So the customer is well aware of what they're going to get prior to signature. So at the point of, that they do sign up with Fuze, we then take that document that's basically detailed everything about the business, everything about the project, what we're trying to achieve, and then our delivery teams take that. And to begin with, the first thing they do is they will host a meeting with the customer. They go, right, this is the document that we produced in pre-sales. I'm going to run through it with you. And what that then does is make sure that the alignment between what the customer is expecting and what our professional service team are about to deliver aligns from day one. And then that document is basically taken all the way through throughout the deployment and is referred back to. So it's a living piece, but we are engaging early on to make sure that we understand what's important for the customer, and then throughout the life cycle of the delivery, but more importantly throughout the life cycle of the contract, we can make sure that the things and benefits we identify up front are seen all the way through.
So it's actually a mutual plan for success. It's a project plan for success, isn't it? And it's something that I guess you can return to on a regular basis as part of your service reviews to make sure that they are adopting it effectively, that they're getting the right experience from it. So it's not just a case of install and go. It's something that you use regularly to review with them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when we actually go through the workshops and things like that, there's one slide and it always sticks in my mind. There's three sections to it. It talks about like how we go about delivering it and what our methodologies are. It talks about like customer success. But I think the main and the real important one is right in the middle. There's a badge and it talks about like partnerships. And anyone that we go into business with, we're not just going to install it and walk away. We're there for the long run. And ultimately, that's what we're looking for, a partnership with these people. Good
to know. And on that, and I think, we're probably near the end of, this chat today. But just before we end, I want to say hello to the fourth wheel on the on this chat show today, Tom. You've sat there and patiently, quietly listening. Tom, you're a relationship manager. You're the guy that we work with day to day to make sure that we're educating our customers around Fuze. Tom, just want to quickly introduce yourself, say hello to the audience.
Hi, Stephen. Yeah, my name is Tom Disney, and I look after the relationships with our UK partners. So I like to help plan events with our partners. Obviously, at the moment, they have to be virtual. But we're looking forward to going back to in-person events. And I kind of help on a day-to-day basis, providing valuable resources and allow our partners to access the Fuze ecosystem to offer the best possible experience to our partners and their customers.
Thanks for that, Tom. What a great place to leave that. Guys, it's been really interesting today. Thanks for joining me on the 186Kloud show, and talking about how you can help customers now as they're accelerating into the cloud during these pandemic times and for the future of work. Have a great day and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Likewise, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Again.
Thank you.
Well, that is a wrap, and thank you for joining us on the 186Kloud show. It's been a privilege having your company. If you wish to be notified when we publish our next interview, just go to 186kloud.com/186Kloud-show and hit subscribe. We'll see you next time on the 186Kloud show, where the vendors meet the community.